This video is brought to you by AKS IAS.
Dear students, we are fortunate to have with us Professor Nadeem Hasnain sir. Sir is an eminent academician and a prominent socio-anthropologist. Sir has mentored thousands of students for UPSC and other competitive examinations. Sir has authored several bestsellers like Tribal India, Indian Anthropology, Indian Society and Culture, and recently Indian Society, Themes and Social Issues. We are glad to announce that Anthropology optional online course by Professor Nadeem Hasnain sir and team will commence from 30th of July 2020. We from AKS IAS heartfully welcome you to this live webinar, sir. Over to Nadeem, sir.
Good evening, everybody. In this session, I propose to talk about anthropology as an optional, why it has been so popular, why it is so attractive for the aspirants from different academic backgrounds, and what this subject is all about. So this is the first session in a series of sessions. So in this very first session, first of all, on behalf of anthropology, let me express our gratitude and indebtedness to the civil services aspirants who have made this lesser known subject so popular. In the last 25-20 years, anthropology has become a household name virtually. It's largely because of its popularity among the UPSC aspirants as well as in the state services competitions. And perhaps for the first time in thousands and thousands of households, the parents and your siblings must have seen the books of anthropology and must be familiar with the names of many of the authors. So anthropology has made this journey, and it's really a fascinating journey. It reminds me of a very interesting anecdote which happened to one of the outstanding Indian anthropologists called Verrier Elwin. You know, in perhaps in the 1950s or maybe early 60s, Elwin was invited to deliver a lecture and to receive an award that was granted to him, award by an organization. And when the secretary of the organization was just reading out from his CV about the achievements of Verrier Elwin, one of the ladies sitting beside him whispered in his ears and asked, "Well, Mr. Elwin, is anthropology quite prevalent in your district?" So he was taken aback. And then when he sought clarification as to exactly what does this lady mean, then to his shock, he discovered that the lady was under the impression that anthropology was the name of a disease, and anthropologists are the doctors of that disease. So thankfully, this is no more the case now. In the last 30 years or 40 years or so, people think that anthropology is not a disease, but rather a remedy for many diseases. An anthropologist is largely known as a doctor of all these diseases, the social diseases. That is how this journey has been going on. So in the last 30 years or so, it has gained immense popularity. Let me tell you that in the 1980s, when anthropology was there as one of the optionals, there were hardly any takers, with the result that it was dropped by the UPSC, dropped from the group of optionals. Later on, it was reintroduced in 1983, and since then, it never looked back. Perhaps from 1985 to 2000, in the last these 15 years, anthropology ruled the UPSC as the number 1 or number 2 optionals all these years. The UPSC does not like any subject to become very popular. And when almost 50% of the aspirants were opting for anthropology, they did whatever they wanted to do. That is, they expanded the syllabus, they shut down the option between social anthropology and physical anthropology and made all these branches compulsory, with the result that those who have been coming from arts background, humanities, so they started deserting anthropology. And a time came when from 4,000 or 5,000 aspirants, there were hardly 150 or 200 students, aspirants who were opting for anthropology. And when the UPSC decided to do away with the second optional, and they reorganized and reformulated the whole format, and when they decided to have only one optional, then we thought that now anthropology would not be having any takers, because anthropology was popular as a second optional in those years, in 1990s or early 2000. So physics anthropology, engineering anthropology, like this, zoology anthropology, botany anthropology, chemistry anthropology, that used to be the combination. But to our pleasant surprise, we found that when anthropology, when they decided for only one optional, then the takers for anthropology increased. And gradually, it again started gaining popularity. Perhaps the main reason behind its popularity was the fact that though not many people, not many aspirants were opting for anthropology, but its success rate did not come down. The success rate kept going up and up, higher and higher. And now when anthropology is being opted for around 500 or 600 or maybe 700 candidates every year, the success rate remains stable. And it is one of the, usually it remains one of the top 3 optional, sometimes first rank, holding first rank, sometimes second rank, like this. Now, why anthropology has been so popular among the aspirants of so many different types of background? That is very interesting. And let me share with you one of my experiences. In the last batch of anthropology students which I was teaching at Hyderabad, so when I entered into the classroom on the very first day, so there were around 350 or 400 of the students aspirants were sitting. And before starting my discussion, I asked them as to how many of you are engineers. And to my surprise, 70 to 80% among the 350 odd people, they raised their hands. That is something very interesting. And then I've been all along thinking that why anthropology has been so popular among aspirants of so diverse backgrounds. And then I realized that perhaps this subject matter is the key. You know, to opt a subject, trying to get optimum marks, maximum marks, get selected, that is one thing. But enjoying the subject while studying, that is entirely another thing. So anthropology has got this advantage that not only that it is scoring, but it is very interesting. And those who are coming from so diverse background find this subject very fascinating, very interesting. Today I'll be talking about all these issues in this session. Starting with what is anthropology? What anthropology is all about? It's a Greek word. And etymologically speaking, if you break the word anthropology, it can be broken into two, anthropos and logos or logia. Anthropos in Greek means man, and logia or logos means science, the science of man. So the first definition or the simplest definition of anthropology was anthropology is the science of man and his works. That has been the earlier definition. Then some people also believe, because they have gone through some literature like in which this might have been mentioned, that Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher, Aristotle was perhaps the first person to use the word anthropologist in those ancient times. So by anthropologist, he meant a person who always talks about himself or herself. And see how prophetic Aristotle was. Because when in the second half of 19th century, when anthropology emerged as a distinct discipline by 1880s, 1890s, then the theme of the anthropology was the one that was mentioned by Aristotle centuries and millennia back. Here, man talks about man. That means humans talk about humans. Then, if in one line, if one is asked to discuss the subject matter, describe the subject matter of anthropology, one can say that anthropology is the study of man in totality. Anthropology is the study of man in totality, cutting across the boundaries of time and space. That is something very significant and also very, very interesting. Very significant and very interesting. How it is? When we say that anthropology is the study of man in totality, cutting across the boundaries of time and space, it means that anthropology thinks that it is entitled to study anything which is related with humans under the sun. So totality is the key word. Holism is a key word. Obviously, anthropologists are interested, or anthropology as a subject is interested in the man in the past, man in the present. And they also sometimes tend to be a little futuristic. When they think that some futuristic observation may also be made about mind. What sort of society would be in the next 25 years or next 50 years? Obviously, when the scope or the subject matter is so wide, so obviously it is not possible for one single anthropologist to know everything from all the branches. And that is how anthropology is divided into several branches. The most popular of it is social cultural anthropology. Social cultural anthropology largely deals with human society and culture. How man lives in society and lives through culture. Because culture is the way of life. Then how humans weave a web of relationships, get connected with others. And that is how human society has developed all these social institutions: family, marriage, kinship, religion, economic organization, political organization, and whatnot. So this branch of anthropology largely deals with society and culture. The second is physical or biological anthropology. Now, what does it mean? It means that an anthropologist looks at man as a social being as well as a biological organism. So in social cultural anthropology, an anthropologist tries to look at human society and culture. In physical or biological anthropology, he or she looks at man or humans as a biological organism. How man evolved, evolution of man. How all these variations are there. Genetics, human genetics. Paleontology, study of fossils, to decode the story of human evolution. Then archaeological anthropology. As the very name suggests, archaeology is the reconstruction of the past. In archaeological anthropology, those who specialize in this branch, they try to reconstruct those cultures which are no more there, which does not exist, which have become extinct, on the basis of all those remains, archaeological remains dug out from the earth, or maybe through rock paintings, cave paintings, and so on and so forth. So that is how anthropology tries to have some idea about humans and the way they lived, say about 1.5 lakhs years ago. Then we have linguistic anthropology. How a language develops. What is the relationship between language, social customs, society, and culture? But anthropology is more interested in sociolinguistics. While all those technicalities of language are taken care of by linguists. Then how to apply this knowledge of anthropology for the welfare of human society? That is applied anthropology. Like applied physics or applied geology, we also have applied anthropology. When the knowledge of anthropology is applied to diagnose the problems of the society and also to suggest remedial measures. So a physical anthropologist tried to look at the physical conditions, medical problems. A social anthropologist and social problems and what should be done to make the life more comfortable, how to take welfare measures and developmental measures for the human society. And that is how we find that applied anthropologists have always been in the service of humanity. The biggest contribution, I think, I very strongly believe that the biggest contribution of anthropology is the development of the anthropological concept of culture. The anthropological concept of culture is the biggest contribution of anthropology to human society. Before anthropology developed a definition of culture, the first definition developed by E.B. Tyler way back in 1871 in his book Primitive Culture. After that, so many other definitions of culture came, and one thing was decided for all times to come, that there can be no talk of cultural superiority or cultural inferiority. Previously, culture was taken to be associated with sophistication and refinement. That is why when you were impressed by somebody, his mannerism, his etiquettes, then people used to comment that he's a very cultured man. Now, we reject it. Every human group has got its culture. Culture varies from people to people, from group to group, from region to region, but nobody can be uncultured. So it completely rules out all this highbrow attitude of the elite class who always thought that they had the owners of culture, because they developed culture. Every human group has culture. Man lives in the society and lives through culture. Now let us briefly talk about the uniqueness or the distinctiveness of anthropology. In what way anthropology is different from other humanities and social sciences? At the very outset, I mentioned that anthropology looks at man as a social being as well as biological organism. So obviously, this is the first point of distinctiveness. We don't have any other science, any other physical sciences or natural sciences or among the social sciences or humanities who claim that they study man in totality. For instance, an economist has never said that he also studies human genetics or human evolution or kinship or religion. What a psychologist does, he peeps through the dark and dingy corners of the brain to see as to what is happening there. While an economist must try to understand the mechanism through which a human group fulfills his needs. A political scientist, he tries to understand as to how a society maintains law and order, how a society is an ordered society, how justice is delivered. Same is the case with natural sciences, physics, chemistry, mathematics. So we don't find any natural science, any physical science, or any humanities or social science that claims that they study man in totality. So that is the basis of the distinctiveness of anthropology as a discipline. When we move further, we find that there may be these 4 points that makes anthropology a highly distinctive discipline. The first is holism, which I have already explained. Holistic approach or holism, which means that it studies man in totality. It studies human society in totality, as a physical being, as a biological organism, as a social being. So holistically. The second point of distinctiveness is a cross-cultural comparison. The cross-cultural comparison means that in anthropology, they compare different cultures not for the sake of giving a verdict about good culture or bad culture. These words are hated in anthropology. But just to understand or just to know about the similarities and variations in cultures. And anthropology has always been very curious to know whether there is something in culture which is universal among all the human societies. That is the ultimate goal. That is why they make cross-cultural comparisons all the time. Then comes cultural relativism. Cultural relativism represents the philosophy of anthropology or the point of view of anthropology. It says that every culture should be studied in relation to that culture only. What does it mean? We conclude by this that every culture is valid in itself. I'm repeating. Every culture is valid in itself, which means that one cannot question the validity of any culture. We have no right to measure other people's culture, to make a verdict about other people's culture using our own yardsticks. We don't have this right. So it means that this principle respects diversity. That is why we find that anthropology not only respects diversity, but also celebrates diversity. And that is why any student of anthropology worth his salt should never be experiencing cultural shock. Because those people have cultural shocks who always believe that their culture is universal, as if the way they live, all other human society may be living like this, the same types of customs or traditions. I mean, you can see that the food habits of for example, the food habits of northeastern people are different from the people from north or the south. So obviously, these are diversity, ethnic diversity, religious diversity, all sorts of diversities are there. So this particular aspect of anthropology, this is cultural relativism, perhaps will go a long way in inculcating in its students a respect for other cultures. And that is a great contribution of anthropology to a society like India, which has got so much diversity. And perhaps this is the best lesson for national integration. You have to learn to respect other cultures. Then the fourth point of distinctiveness of anthropology is its distinct research methodology. How do they do research? And the most remarkable thing is ethnography. Ethnography is first-hand observation in the field through participant observation, which means that the researcher has to live in the society he is studying, live with the people, be a part of them, and that is called participant observation. Now, no other discipline, even in social sciences, claims that they have all these four distinctive points. For instance, the sociologists also are great believers. They have a faith, they have an article of faith like an anthropologist about respect for other cultures. So they are also believers in cultural relativism. But they never claimed that they do holistic studies or the study of man in totality. Same is the case with other social sciences. So we can say that anthropology is not merely a discipline, but it is also a point of view. It is a point of view to look at human society or culture. And I always say that if one has really understood anthropology, then one can never be the same again. You'll be shedding many of your prejudices, preconceived notions about other cultures, about other people. And then you feel that now you are emancipated. So anthropology also emancipates you, liberates you from all those narrow parochial thoughts. Look, and for a society, for a country like ours, that can be the remedy of many of our problems. Now, we come to the next point, which I want to share with you, and that is anthropology inculcates in its student a sense of doubt and a spirit of inquiry. You have to be a little skeptical. So it means that the faith should not take you too far. We have to question. Unless we doubt, we will not inquire. So it's sense of doubt followed by inquiry. It means that anthropology tries to make you rational, rationalism, and a little scientific temper also, scientific outlook, which incidentally is also a part of the directive principle of state policy in our constitution, that it is the responsibility of the state to promote scientific outlook among its citizens. So in a way, anthropology also moving towards that goal and helps to achieve this goal. Why anthropology is so relevant today? Some time back, a very exciting black anthropologist from USA, Angela Cheater, made a very interesting observation. She said that anthropology has become too important to be left to anthropologists alone. That is very interesting. And that is very true also, because so many different types of people are using anthropology in different fields. Look at all these areas of specialization in social cultural anthropology. And many researchers who have, as per their preferences, as per their likings, they enter into different fields of specialization, like say, anthropology of architecture, anthropology of management, business anthropology, anthropology of sports, anthropology of food, forensic anthropology. I mean, all sorts of fields are there. So those who want to go for a specialization, they can choose one particular branch of anthropology, and from that particular branch, they may select or they may choose one particular area of study and go to specialize in them. And not only for the purpose of research or what we call swanta sukhaye, but also for themselves. They use it also in their business, in marketing and everything. And in the marketing research and in the behavioral sciences, anthropology is being used these days a lot, especially in USA. So if you wind up this small explanation of anthropology, we can say that Anthropologists are empiricists, which means that they see it through themselves, through their own eyes, observers. So they are world observers, empiricists. They are interpreter, that is world describer, that describe the world, the people. They are comparativist, world comparer, futurist, that is world imaginer, whose main ambition is to know all about human society as a whole. Now let us see as to in what way anthropology has been helpful a lot to the administrators and civil servants. On the basis of the feedback that I have been getting from my students, who are now in hundreds, they are in different services, IAS, IPS in all these states, and some of them have been in regular interaction with me. And when they tell me that anthropology is helping them a lot in administration to understand the problem of the people, to have a sympathetic attitude towards the weaker sections of the society, I find it very heartwarming. So, in a way, you find that anthropology has also been very, very helpful in administration. And perhaps that is why we find that a number of the aspirants who opt for anthropology and get selected in the civil services, many of them have been using anthropology in the field situations. So that was, in brief, what I wanted to share with you regarding anthropology. And in the coming sessions, then I will be talking about your syllabus, analysis of the papers, strategy for writing answers, and so many other things in the sessions to follow. Now, if any of you have any queries or any questions, you are welcome. Any questions?
Sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, there are so many optionals. So how do I understand which optional is more suitable for me, sir?
Okay. I have a very common sense answer to it. On the basis of my own experience of the last 25, 30 years of interacting with the aspirant for civil services, I can tell you that, and this is my considered opinion, that there are three criteria for choosing an optional. The first is that you should have a look at the success rate of that subject in the last 4 or 5 years. If the success rate is high, then perhaps it's a plus point. The second is that the study material, the books, the literature, the coaching, the guidance is available. And the third is you should also have your heart in that subject. So you should also enjoy the subject. Now, in the beginning, I made the comment that opting a particular subject and working hard on it just to get success is one thing. But enjoying the subject also at the same time is a plus point. So I think that these are the three criteria every new entrants must take into consideration while deciding about a subject. Yes.
Sir, the next question is, what is social linguistic anthropology, sir?
It is not social linguistics, it is socio-linguistics.
Okay, sir.
in linguistic anthropology, we have a very specialized branch called sociolinguistics. And a sociolinguist who has specialized in this in anthropology, in linguistic anthropology, looks at how language is related to a particular customs or practices or other social processes of a society. So he is not that much concerned like linguist as to how language develops or phonetics. They are not concerned with all these things. They are concerned about this linkage, the relationship between language and society, and that they study in sociolinguistics.
So many students feel, some optionals have a higher success rate. Is that right, sir?
I could not hear. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. So many students feel that few optional subjects, they have more success rates, sir. Is that correct, sir?
I think anthropology definitely comes first, and then you may find geography and a couple of others, or maybe sociology. They may be having a good success rate. And UPSC also sometimes release this information. And the success rate is largely calculated on the basis of how many people have written their mains with a particular optional and how many have, been selected. So that way, a success rate of 10% is considered to be very good. Some success rate between 9 to 12%, 10%, 11%, 12%. And you find that anthropology has been, in the last several years, one of the optionals that fit into this criteria of 9 to 12% of success rate. Yes.
Okay, sir. So thank you so much, sir. We at AKS IAS heartfully thank you for this insightful live webinar, sir. Looking forward for more sessions like this in future, sir. Dear students, we are glad to announce that Anthropology optional online course by Professor Nadeem Hasnain, sir, and team will commence from 30th of July 2020. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
This video is brought to you by AKS IAS.